As Milton races towards landfall in Florida, we get the latest on the storm's track and review what you need to get ready before local impacts begin. To start, we're joined by longtime First Coast meteorologist Lauren Rautenkranz. Good morning, Lauren.
Hi, Anne. It's so nice to talk to you.
It is delightful to talk to you as well, Lauren, and I miss seeing you every day. Um, we just heard from the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network about sort of the general track of Milton, but there's interval updates on these storms. What do we know for the First Coast region based on the latest updates and whether anything has changed?
Yeah, so you know what? Obviously, it's one that we don't want to write off. I think the First Coast, and we all know firsthand that these storms that hit the West Coast very much impact us in Jacksonville and across Southeast Georgia and Northeast Florida. So I would say that right now, those southward trends overnight and first thing this morning, they've kind of stopped, right? We're getting very close to landfall. We should have that by this evening, and we will feel those effects pretty much in Jacksonville by the time your head hits the pillow tonight. I would say after midnight until about lunchtime tomorrow is going to be the worst window for us. And we are talking about the potential for some heavy rain, some heavy wind. We could have hurricane force gusts up into even Fernandina Beach and down through Palm Coast as well. But the rainfall coupled with that surge potential in places like St. John's, Putnam, and Flagler counties is going to be something that I'm especially going to be watching. And then there are places that are vulnerable, right? Like the Swanee and Black Creek, where water levels could rise. One thing with the wind as well, Anne, is that we've had a lot of rain, right? And so any little bit of wind coupled with the rain is going to lead to, potential for power outages and trees to be, toppled over just because those root systems are more kind of at risk as well.
And I know you can't explain necessarily the decisions that go into an emergency management call, but evacuation orders are in St. Johns County, large areas being under a mandatory evacuation, none in Duval. So what's the divide there? Why are we seeing that big difference?
I would say, the surge is going to be higher in places like St. John's and Flagler. We will still have a bit of surge, but in St. John's, we all remember in recent history, my tenure, at the local station there, we did have water into homes and businesses, unfortunately. And remember, the last few days, we've had this backup of wind out of the Northeast. So we've had our nor'easter. So that keeps the waterways naturally a bit more elevated. Now we're going to add a bit of rainfall. And if that is ending up on the higher end of the scale, 8 inches or greater, we will have that onshore flow, exacerbated essentially with the core of the hurricane moving on through. I think St. Johns County, and just the way the topography is going to have more of an easterly breeze versus just, farther north in Duval County, we're going to have that kind of more northeasterly breeze.
Interesting. And so what are you thinking for the places that flooded in previous storms because of high river levels, the San Marcos, even the Palac, because I know you mentioned Black Creek, which often floods as well. But what are you expecting to see in those low-lying areas?
What's so tricky is that we get a random summertime thunderstorm and these places flood, if we have a high tide as well. So high tides are going to be something that people really want to focus on. So we're looking at the Main Street Bridge. So, downtown San Marco kind of region. Our critical times are going to be 3 a.m. Thursday. So this is after midnight tonight, and then 3 o'clock. So mid-afternoon tomorrow. I've got friends that have evacuated, but they didn't have to go far. Let's just say St. Johns County folks, they've went out to Waycross, and it's crazy because that's in our viewing area, but they're not going to see nearly the impacts. They're going to see just a breeze compared to what we could see, out along the coast in St. Johns County. St. Augustine folks, I want them to kind of be more on alert around 2 a.m. when we are going to have that easterly breeze. And the surge picks up a bit more with that core moving through. And then it's mid-afternoon again, 2 o'clock or so, 2:30.
And I just been hearing that, once the storm gets out over the ocean, that we could see even an increase in those winds picking up. Do you have any concern about that? Kind of it passes, but it remains without any friction to stop that wind when it's on the ocean?
Yeah, well, hopefully our jets stream is able to kick that off in a way, at least the core of Milton, and it should remain extra tropical and eventually weaken out to sea. But we are going to still have a front moving in as we head into early next week. So coastal showers could become kind of more of a nuisance for folks that do have cleanup and debris around, or maybe power outages. I will say, I'm a positive girl, Anne, and I do like to look on the brighter side. Is we have some really nice weather coming in, at least as far as the lower humidity goes, come Friday. And we will have clear skies for the most part, I would say, with the exception of some coastal showers by Saturday and Sunday. So the sunshine will be out again. And thankfully, while folks are cleaning up, maybe things will be a bit more comfortable. I do know after Helene, just 2 weeks ago, it was still awfully humid in quite a lot of places. So that always is kind of, the worst part is afterwards, you're still dealing with that rough, yucky weather. So hopefully we'll get even maybe some inland upper 50s by Friday, Saturday morning.
Wow. I mean, at least it offers some relief to people if there are
Exactly.
widespread power outages, and that is probably to be expected.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially with the saturated grounds, and when we do get those wind gusts of 60 miles per hour, I would say that widespread trees down and power outages are usually a concern. Now, you do shift just into southern Flagler County and the south of Palm Coast and toward Daytona Beach. I think that's where folks will have more of an issue with roof damage and extensive power line damage. So at least for, my First Coast pals, we're looking more into, Daytona Beach southward for that kind of extensive damage.
Well, Lauren Rautenkranz, it's wonderful to talk to you. We so appreciate your forecasting. Thanks so much for coming on the program today, and please be safe.
Absolutely, Anne. You too, and everyone just stay calm. We got this.
All right. Thanks, Lauren. Up next, making sure you're current on your storm prep checklist. Welcome back. Whether you're an old salt or facing your first storm preps are the same, and some of them are really quite simple, but they help a great deal. And here to help you get ready as you can be, I'm joined by the CEO of the American Red Cross of Northeast Florida, Christian Smith. Good morning, Christian.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. So we're getting close to impacts from the storm. The worst now are expected to arrive around dawn tomorrow. If I haven't even started preparing, what are the main things that I should be focused on right now?
Well, we want to make a couple of suggestions. One is to think that if you're going to stay in your home and not evacuate, whether you stay or leave, make sure you remove all those items, your lawn furniture, any kind of trash cans, any kind of debris that may be outside. All of those things, the wind will pick up and potentially come towards your house or your neighbor's house. And so that's first and foremost, those gas grills, the propane tanks, just bring all that stuff into your garage or into your home. The second thing is if you're going to stay in your home and you don't have that kit, look at those basic things. Gather the food, gather your water, consider doing things like filling up your bathtubs and sinks. We may not experience the dramatic that other areas are going to, but still we may go periods of time without power. So filling up your bathtubs and your sinks, that'll allow you to flush toilets in the event you lose power so that you can still utilize those facilities that are really critical in times of disasters. And then, really talking with your family and talking about, in the event something changes, the winds get higher, or for some reason you experience some type of damage, or you and your family just want to be extra safe. Have you identified that safe room in your home? Where will you and your family ride the storm out? We think it looks like it's probably going to be good here, but staying on the couch and everybody sitting in that big room that's got the big open windows, that may not be the best thing for us at certain times through the storm. So going into that safe room and identifying that. And then finally, making sure you have access to your first aid kit. Did you get those prescription medications? We still have people that are coming in and out and going into the stores because they are open. But as the day goes on, you're going to be really careful about doing some of that. So right now is that critical time that you're wrapping up those last minute preparations.
And I know that you recommend having kind of a go kit that can last you 3 days and a at-home kit that can last about 2 weeks. Let's go through some of the specifics that you recommend having on hand for the stay-at-home folks. You said fill the bathtubs. Is it recommended to have some bleach on hand if that would be needed to disinfect water for drinking? And what kind of food do you suggest people get?
Sure. So first off, the water, when we talk about filling it with the bathtubs and the sinks, that is for cleaning and for flushing your toilets. We don't recommend that for utilizing for drinking water. So hopefully you filled up containers, and there's still time. The water's still good. Filling up your containers with water, placing them in your refrigerator or placing them on your counter so you have access to fresh, clean water. Ideally, you're going to have a gallon of water per person per day. But many people right now can utilize the water in their homes and just put it into containers. We don't recommend you putting them in old milk containers or something that has any kind of residue. So finding those containers that are clean and you feel comfortable that you would be drinking out of on a normal basis.
I know.
It's always, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Also, when you're thinking about the kinds of foods, hopefully you grab those non-perishable items. Maybe you have grabbed some perishable items. That's okay to have. But really thinking about things you can eat right out of a can, things that you don't need to heat up. Lots of people will experiment with things like SpaghettiOs and tuna, and there's a lot of, heater meals and all kind of pre-packaged meals that we all have access to. Even these last-minute places that you can still have access to some of them. But the key is having things in a place that you and your family know where they are, having that manual can opener just in case, because that's going to be that period of time that you may go without power, and you just want to make sure that you and your family have access to food and water.
Yeah, a flashlight by the bedside is one that I've learned is a really good idea. And also, I know that during Irma, a lot of people tried to put things high up so that they wouldn't flood, and the furniture that they put them on ended up floating and turning over. So I guess countertops are a more reliable solution for putting important documents. And we should just mention, I know that there's several shelters that are open. Some of them are pet friendly. They don't take reptiles, but they do take ferrets. And so any just last minute tips before we have to hang up here?
Sure. I mean, you make great points. And because we're kind of at that last minute time period, grabbing copies of your important papers, making sure that they are inside Ziploc bags. If you're coming to one of our shelters, we have Red Cross volunteers at all the shelters in the Duval County and the Putnam County area. So if you're going to be coming to one of the shelters, bring your items with you that you're going to need. We'll recommend you not bringing everything inside, but thinking about those basic things. Do you have special dietary? Do you have medications? Are you going to make sure that there are going to be individuals that are going to be traveling with you? If there's some people who are going to be staying in your home, what's that plan to stay behind? So I think the biggest thing at this point is letting people know where you are, communicating to your family members in the community and outside of the community. And if you come into a sheltering environment, make sure you've told them that that's where you're going, because that will be much easier for us to help locate them in the event there is any type of damage or you lose communication.
Well, Christian Smith with the Red Cross of Northeast Florida, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And everybody just stay safe. And hopefully come Friday afternoon, we'll have a sunshiny day starting on the weekend.
That is what we're hoping for. Thank you so much.